So another product we have is application scanning. It's more of a dynamic application scanning. And the way you would set it up is to create a scan profile. But I'll show you that in a minute. With application scanning, you can choose important domains or your important web apps where you definitely want to have a deeper and thorough scan. With application scanning, you can choose to scan either in unauthenticated or authenticated mode. And when application scanning runs, it goes deep and it crawls and fuzzes every endpoint that we discover. So let me show you how that works and what it can find. To set it up, you go to Application Scanning tab, and here it lists all the scan profiles that we've already created. But if you were to create a new one, you'll simply click the Create Scan Profile button over there. And you can think of a scan profile as a collection of settings of where and how you want the application scanning to run. And when you think about where you want it to run, let me give you 3 tips. So you probably want to run anywhere you have any custom-built web apps. And the second tip is that if you have any login forms, it probably contains some PII information, at least username and passwords. So that's very important to make sure that you scan that thoroughly. And thirdly, if you have a place where you already do tracking or you do some A/B testing, that sort of signifies that it's an important place and that you want to understand user behavior. So that's probably also has some valuable things that you want to make sure to keep secure. So those are 3 simple tips on where you might want to create an application scanning profile for. So you simply choose that domain or IP address in the dropdown, and then you name it, and then you create scan profile. You click the Start Scan button to trigger the scanning immediately. And it can take amount of time for the scan to finish depending on the size of your application. But you can always see the current scan status by viewing it here in the page. But you can also make sure you set up an integration so you get alerted as soon as the scan is finished, so you know that, okay, there's some results to be viewed. Let me walk through this table, what you can see. So in the first column is the scan profile name that you've given. If you don't put anything in that input field, it will have the same name as the endpoint that it's scanning. The asset will point to its root asset that the scan belongs to. The last scan will signify when it was last run or if it's currently running. And the scan status column will either show a complete tag, a non-descriptive if it's currently running, and in case there are any warnings that you might need to take a look at to make sure that you are actually scanning what you want to scan. And if you have schedule scan, which we recommend, you will see here in this column when the next scan will be kicked off. And you can always manually stop and start scans using the buttons in the last column. But let me take you into the settings that you can configure for an application scan profile. So here you have the general settings, the name you can change, and if you want to change the scan schedule to make it scan more often or less often. And in the second tab, you have the more detailed configuration, like where the endpoints where you want us to hit. So you can add that to the allow crawling list of subdomains. If you have any subdomains that you want us to avoid, you can list them there. Any path that you want us to include or avoid. And same thing if you want us to attempt scanning particular ports or avoid particular ports. And if you want us to emulate specific behavior, you can add a recorded crawling recording. So when we crawl this website, we will do specific action in that order that you would want us to do. For example, add things to a shopping cart before clicking the checkout button to make sure that we get those kind of flow of user behavior that we want to test. We can also scan behind login, and for that, we need some help from you to set that up, either by providing us with a session cookie or providing us with basic auth, Or you can use a Chrome plugin to record a very specific login process. And it's a plugin that's available for you to simply start recording, and then you click. And whenever the scan profile is started, it will emulate those interactions and make sure that we scan behind the login of your page. And with that, it concludes the application scanning part. The result will be shown in the vulnerabilities view together with all the other findings that we find from our other products. And if you were to miss out on findings, for example, you see the application scanning finished, but you have 0 results, either it's a good job to yourself, a pat in the back, you're safe and secure, or just to make sure that is not a false negative, make sure that we're not blocked. Make sure that Detectify traffic is not blocked by your provider. Make sure that you have allowed listed Detectify, so we actually reach where you want us to scan.